Yes, we were talking about trash here, but that was like an aha moment for me, that government can work for people, that the political system can work for people, and that I was 17. I was totally unqualified. I hadn't even graduated high school, and here I was helping the mayor of Milwaukee to help the people of Milwaukee. And I caught the political bug at that moment, and it sounds so silly, but that little thing helped me to believe that someday I could mobilize hundreds of thousands of young people to impact an election, or I could bring 12,000 people to Washington, D.C. for the biggest lobby day on climate change in U.S. history. As an 18-year-old at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I was lucky enough to work with a full-time paid grassroots organizer that worked for our student government, that taught me how to organize, that taught me how to recruit people to events, that taught me how to be an effective public speaker. In part, thanks to all of that, I've made it a big part of my job today to do that same thing for other emerging leaders, to provide the training, to provide the guidance, to provide the mentorship necessary to ensure that we have that next generation of leaders. Spent a lot of months sitting around thinking, how are we going to kind of make our mark on the presidential election? And was this the right move? I mean, we were a climate movement. We care about clean energy and green jobs and stopping coal plants. Was it the right place for us to get involved in electoral politics? Were we just going to be in the shadow of what ultimately became, the Barack Obama election? We had many discussions as a coalition, and we decided to embark on a pretty significant endeavor. We decided to try to make 2008 the climate election for young people. And we launched a pretty ambitious effort called the Power Vote campaign. How were we going to get 1 million people? We had staff, but not staff that could collect 1 million individuals who are pledging to vote for the clean and just energy future. How are we going to penetrate the news, right? I mean, Barack Obama was running for president. Hillary Clinton was running for president. How are we going to pay for it? It was going to be expensive to run an effort big enough. I mean, we wanted kids all across America to wear t-shirts that said Power Vote. We wanted to be a part of every story of the presidential debates. These were things that were so far outside of where our capacity was actually at. So we leaned into our grassroots. We said, you know what, it's not going to be able to be paid staff that are going to get to 1 million people. In fact, we're going to have to figure out a way to make this campaign almost go viral so that young people will understand the vision. They'll see that they could be for Barack Obama or they can be for John McCain, and they can still run this campaign because this is their way of also contributing towards a clean and just energy future. They didn't just make magic happen, they kind of made a revolution happen. In hundreds of places across the country, we had young people, some who had never been part of the movement before, wear their bright green Power Vote t-shirt day in and day out every day of the fall election of 2008. And they were getting young people to sign these pledges. And they were showing up at every debate. When their local congressperson was debating the local candidate that was running, they were there in their green t-shirts asking questions. They were on the front page of local newspapers. That wasn't media we were paying for, they were earning it. We made Barack Obama into a candidate, in my opinion, that was talking about clean energy wherever he went. He was talking about creating 5 million green jobs. It was 3 years earlier that the youth climate movement had decided we'd start advocating for 5 million green jobs. We took on the very risky task of deciding to apply pressure to our president and call him out a little bit for not being as bold of a leader on climate and energy as we thought he could be. This is very controversial because I will tell you that a majority of the environmental movement in the United States says it is off limits to go after the president. And young people, of all people, were gonna kind of go after the president. So we did it. We put really strong demands on him and came out of the gate, and people kind of came swinging at us. They said, I mean, you guys are politically unstrategic. You know, our funders were questioning whether or not, some of our funders were questioning whether or not it made sense to continue to provide us resources. Many of my colleagues in the environmental movement said they started to question whether or not I had the judgment to actually continue to lead this movement. I wrote a very controversial blog post about President Obama's trip to Asia. We haven't done this before. We've never experienced what it's like to push a president that we actually like. And that's a hard thing for young leaders, because is it your inexperience? Are you not being strategic? We ultimately stuck to our convictions, and we said we're willing to be told that we're politically irrelevant. We're willing to be told, you know, we're willing to lose a little bit of credibility because we think this is the right thing to do. And we pushed on, and it ultimately turned out to be the right thing to do. Because after many tough conversations with the White House, we were granted this unbelievable White House forum. We had to be relentless. Have we been bruised along the way? Absolutely. Have our critics come out and pointed out every flaw, the times where we've misspoke or where we delivered slightly less than we thought we could? Of course. But that's part of this whole game, right? That's part of building a movement. You have to anticipate that you're going to get knocked down, and it feels so good when you figure out a way to come back fighting. My advice to young people who want to change the world is do not let anything stand in the way of doing what you want to do. It sounds cliche to say that anything is possible, but anything is possible. The biggest thing holding you back is just your own self-doubt. So you have to be willing to take that initiative, be bold enough to believe that your idea is actually worth happening. Be bold enough to ask for help, have the humility to ask for help, and be willing to give more than you ever thought possible. If you're going to ask a lot of other people, you have to ask more of yourself than you ever thought you could. And if you're willing to do that, then chances are you're going to be successful.